So as I walk up here tonight, I know that you can tell that I'm different. Obviously, I don't have hands. But being different's okay. Matter of fact, I enjoy being different because I can wear shirts like this. Look, Ma, no hands. Or like this. Don't shoot, I'm unarmed. My name's Jason Koger. I'm a husband, I'm a father of 3, I'm a Christian, and I'm a bilateral arm amputee. These hands that you see, the left one is a myoelectric ETD. The right one is something that most of you probably never seen. This is the most advanced bionic hand in the world right now. This hand is also equipped with an Apple app, because there's an app for everything. The sockets are custom made for me, but inside the sockets, I have wrist rotators. So I'm probably the only person in this room that can do this. So for 29 years, I lived my life just like most of you, with 2 hands. I grew up just south of Owensboro, Kentucky, on my grandfather's farm. I had an older sister, and I had 2 amazing parents. My parents taught my sister and I more about life than I even knew. Didn't even realize what they taught me until later in life. In 1984, my parents decided to quit their jobs and start a company. They had a goal in mind, they had a plan. And as they were starting this plan, and I was very young, but I got to see a lot of failure, I got to see a lot of determination, I got to see never giving up, and I got to see them succeed. And the end result, they had an amazing, successful business. My sister and I had much easier life than my parents did. But one thing that surprised me about them is just the will of never stopping. And I had a plan for my life as well. So after high school, I decided to go to Murray State University, and I heard her already say that I did fail public speaking. But I went to Murray, and as soon as I got home from Murray, I knew exactly where I wanted to work. I knew who I wanted to marry. We did get married. I knew that I wanted kids. I knew that I wanted to live back in the same place, in the same area on my grandfather's farm, and I wanted to raise my kids the same way. So all my plans were going like I wanted. Well, what happens when our plans are taken away? How do we overcome that? That's exactly what happened to me on March 1st, 2008. It was the first warm day of the year, and I decided to go on a quick four-wheeler ride around my grandfather's farm, somewhere I've been 1,000,000 times. I'd laid my kids down for a nap, and with my cousin following behind me, we took off. This was going to be a quick 5-10 minute ride, and on that ride, I came in contact with a down power line. I took 7,200 volts of electricity. I remember the vibrations going through my body. Eventually, I passed out. I took 7,200 for 30 seconds until the power shut off. It stopped my heart. It actually came out the bottom of my foot and blew my tennis shoe 30 feet from where I was. As soon as the power shut off, I hit the ground, and as soon as I hit the ground, my heart started back up. I immediately woke up. I felt like I was on fire. I was trying to climb down into a ditch to cool off, and luckily my cousin was with me, and he was pulling me out from getting in the ditch, and he dialed 911. So the ambulance came, and my wife also came to the scene of the accident. I was loaded up, and I remember looking down at some of my injuries. I noticed that my left thumb was basically gone, and that's where electricity had came out. A few months before I got hurt, my grandfather passed away, but my grandfather was a single-arm amputee. And I remember telling my wife, it's not that big of a deal. I'm just going to lose my left thumb. And I say that now like I was pretty calm, but I wasn't. So I make it to Owensboro Hospital. Immediately, surgeons come in, and life flight is called. So a helicopter comes and picks me up. I'm admitted into Vanderbilt Hospital in the burn unit. I remember the helicopter ride. I remember landing. I remember going down an elevator. I remember going down a hallway into a room that I'll never forget. That room reminded me of a morgue. Everything was stainless steel. As I was laying there, I found out that that room was called hydro. Hydro room is where they actually take a pressure washer and they wash your dead skin off of you. My whole right arm was third-degree burns. Immediately, as soon as my wife and family got there, they signed release forms to go to the OR. I went to the emergency room, or to the OR, immediately went into surgery. I had no idea what the plan was, what they were going to do. And they put me in an induced coma. So 3 days later, I woke up from an induced coma. I was laying flat on a bed. I couldn't see my injuries. And I found out that I had also broke my neck and broke my back. So as I laid there, I told the nurse that I wanted to see my parents. So my parents walked in the room. As soon as they walked in, my dad sat next to me. And he said, "Jason, no matter what, we're going to get through this. We've always had faith. I don't know how we're going to get through it, but we're going to get through this." So immediately he told me that I lost both my arms. And I had all those questions that you can imagine. Why? Why me? What did I do to deserve this? All those questions. Well, the next day, I got to meet my doctor for the first time. His name was Dr. Jeffrey Guy. So Dr. Guy walks in the room. He sits down with me, and it's just he and I. And he's telling me why they had to amputate and all the stuff they had going on. And he told me, he said, "Jason, you're going to be in this hospital for at least a couple months." And as he went to stand up, he said, "I want you to do me a favor. Me and you are going to get to know each other really well. I want you to come up with one goal in your life. And I want you to tell me what that goal is, and I want to help you reach that goal." So he went walking towards the door, and he got to the door, and I said, "Dr. Guy, I know exactly what I want." He came back, he sat down with me. I said, "First off, I'm not going to be here for 2 months. Second off, I know what I want." I said, "There's one thing that matters to me more than anything, that's holding my kids again." So the next day, I went to the waiting room, and that was the very first day I held my kids. And I knew right then that no matter what, I would get through what I was going through. 12 days after my accident, Dr. Guy walks in the room. He sits down with me again. He said, "I never imagined that I would ever say this, but I'm going to let you go home." So 12 days after my accident, I go back to Owensboro. I'm going down 431, and I pass a church, and there's a sign on the church that says, "Welcome home, Jason. We prayed for you. We're thinking about you." That meant a ton to me. I knew I had the support that I needed. So it's kind of funny because I remember the very first trip that we ever made to town as a family. It was me, my wife, and at the time I had 2 little girls. My oldest was 21 months old, and my youngest was 3 months old. We go to Hobby Lobby. I cannot stand shopping anyway. So I tell my wife, "Hey, I tell you what, why don't you walk around with Billy, or with Campbell, the 3-month-old, and me and Billy Grace will walk around by ourselves." So I pick Billy Grace up, and I'm carrying her. I have no prosthetics yet. And we're like 3 or 4 rows over from my wife. And Billy Grace starts kicking her legs, and I'm like about to drop her, so I'm like, "All right, I'm going to set her down." So I set her down on the floor. As soon as she sat down or got on the floor, she went running away from me. And I said, "Billy Grace, get back over here." So she turned around and had this really big smile, and it was just like a movie. Like she's fixing to run over to me and give me a huge hug, jump in my arms, like this is amazing. So as soon as she got up to me, and I'm waiting for her to jump in my arms, she grabbed me by my pants, and she pulled my pants down to my ankles. So I'm looking around. Nobody sees this. I'm like, "Billy Grace, you got to pull my pants up. Come on, like you got to." She ain't having it. So with pants down to my ankles, I'm literally wobbling as fast as I can 4 rows over, and I've run into a bunch of people. And I get to my wife, and she reaches down, she pulls my pants up. She's like, "Man, that's so embarrassing." I said, "Yeah." I said, "But it could have been worse." And she said, "How can it be worse? You lost your britches in the middle of Hobby Lobby." And I said, "Well, at least my underwear stayed up." So No, but seriously, like, there was a lot of ups and downs throughout this, and every single day I woke up, I knew that there was a plan for me, and I would go out into my garage and I would try something. I tried changing the oil in my lawnmower, tried to do stuff that didn't even make sense, and I remember that one thing that wasn't going as planned is I found out about these bionic hands on the internet, and I wanted them. And I called out to my prosthetist, and I said, hey, I want those iLim hands, man. They're pretty cool. And he said, you'll never get them. I said, why not? He said, because they're too expensive. I said, all right. So he said, they're $150,000 a piece. You'll never get them. Insurance will say no. And I was denied multiple times, but I kept on fighting. I learned from my parents to never quit. So I fought for them, and eventually they said yes. And that's why I became the first person in the world with 2 bionic hands. Thank you. Somebody told me something one time. They said, a person that can change your life is standing probably less than 3 feet from you at all times. And I thought about that for a long time, and I have a prime example. One time I met this lady from Evansville, and she was a news anchor, and I was telling her my story, and then obviously she wanted to do an article about it because I was first in the world with the bionic hands. So I was on the local news here, and as soon as it aired, I got contacted by her, and she said, somebody wants to talk to you from CNN. So CNN called me, and they wanted to use the same footage that was in Evansville on CNN the next day. I signed release forms. The next day, I was on CNN all day long, and that opened up a ton of doors. It opened up talking to other amputees, therapists, prosthetists, people all over the world. Well, then I got a phone call from a lady in Hawaii, and long and short, she wanted to Skype talk to me, and I thought, this is kind of weird. So I did tell my wife, you should probably sit beside me because I don't know what she wants. But that phone call was a lady in Hawaii. She was with Hawaii 5-0, and they were doing an episode, a remake in the 70s called the Hookman episode. But they wanted to do a guy that had 2 bionic hands. I was the first person in the world. I was the only person in the world that had 2 bionic hands. So they hired me. I went to Hawaii, 2 weeks of filming for that one episode. That opened up doors to do, like I told you, this has an Apple app. Apple contacted me. I did the Super Bowl in 2011 commercial for Apple. I've been on CNN, Dr. Gupta. I've been on Al Jazeera American Network. I've been on 3 hunting shows. I've been in a movie with Matthew McConaughey. I've been in Manifesto, and the list goes on. Magazines and newspapers all across the world, the Associated Press. And I'm not telling you all that to brag. I'm not bragging about any of it. I just think it's amazing because that one person that was standing 3 feet from me, she's the one that opened all these doors for me. And my story's not over yet. But when I leave here tonight, I want you to think of a few things. I want you to reach out to the people beside you. Talk to them. That's all it takes. But more than that is, why should we just survive when we can thrive? Thank you all.